guys, let's talk about all the horror movies I've watched recently. So June was Pride Month and I wanted to watch a bunch of LGBTQ horror movies. I did a whole video on it, but I watched Thelma, which is a really surprisingly good horror movie that's on Tubi. It's about a young woman who heads off to college and she starts developing feelings for a woman, and at the same time she starts to realize she has these special abilities, and it's really trippy and weird, and it was a really interesting horror movie with some haunting imagery. I also checked out The Last Thing Mary Saw, which is a bleak horror movie on Shudder about a woman and her housemaid who fall in love. The family finds out and they make them repent for their sins, and the two try to devise a plan to escape their family. It has some really dark, disturbing stuff in it. Then I checked out Killer Body Count on Tubi, which is a campy horror movie about a young girl from a religious family who is suspected of having a sex addiction, and her dad sends her to this rehab camp that is supposed to help her with her sex addiction, and she meets other teens like her. And while she's there, there's a masked killer in a devil mask on the loose, killing them off one by one. This is from the same director of Slumber Party Massacre remake, so it's very fun, self-aware, and there's just so many funny moments in this one. It was surprisingly good, and I think Tubi has really been killing it with the Tubi originals lately. Checked out Lyle on Tubi, which is a lesbian Rosemary's Baby. It stars Gabby Hoffman as an expectant mother who moves into a new apartment building with her partner, and some strange stuff happens. She loses her child and she suspects that the apartment building has something to do with it. It's really filled with paranoia and just dread, and Gabby Hoffman gives an incredible performance. Then I checked out In a Violent Nature. I did a full review of that, a spoiler review, and overall I really enjoyed this one. This is an experimental slasher that's told entirely from the POV of the killer, who is very much like Jason Voorhees from the Friday the 13th series. He's resurrected from this group of campers, and we see as he stalks them and kills them off one by one. I think it's filled with some really fun kills, especially one in particular, a yoga kill that was just incredible to watch. It is so insane, and it's so cool that they were able to accomplish it because it was done with all practical effects, and I thought it was fun. It was a really cool horror movie. I didn't think I'd like it as much as I did. Then I checked out The Watchers, which is the new horror movie from Aishana Shyamalan, M. Night Shyamalan's daughter. This is based on a book of the same name, and it stars Dakota Fanning as a young woman who is sort of running from her past. She's living in Ireland, and she's sent to go deliver this bird to a customer, and she finds herself stranded in the middle of the wilderness. She finds these other people who are also stranded, and she discovers that she can't leave, and there's these creatures that's watching them. I really loved the first half of this movie. The setting is just beautiful. I love the wilderness vibe and just everything about it. It was beautiful. And I loved the sense of dread and mystery surrounding what's happening. But then once you discover what's happening, it becomes a little cheesy and just stupid. And it went on a little bit too long for me. I wish they ended it sooner because it just got worse as they continued on. But overall, I didn't think it was that bad. I think if it's on streaming, you should check it out. I wouldn't go to the theater to see it, but I had fun with it. Discovering at my older age that I'm a lot easier to please with movies, and I'm going into movies with more of just like a chill, relaxed thought process. Like, I don't care as much as I used to. And I mean, I don't hate things as much as I used to. Then I watched What Comes Around, which is a horror movie, or it's a horror thriller on Hulu. It stars Kyle Gallner and Grace Van Dan, who you might remember from Stranger Things season 4 as Chrissy. And in this, she's a young girl who I believe is like 16. She's turning 17, and she has this relationship with this guy she met online. He's much older. And then when she brings him over to her family's house and introduces them, we realize that the mother of this girl has a connection to this man. And it's a really interesting story that I don't want to give too much away. It's kind of a little ridiculous and very lifetimey, but Kyle Gallner, he pulls me in with everything, and he is so good in this. And I thought it was interesting because it looks at specific relationships and the mental effects of those types of relationships. And I'm being vague here, but because I don't want to spoil it, but I thought it was interesting, and I would I would recommend it. Then I rewatched Deep Blue Sea, which is one of the best shark movies ever. This one is just, it's a shark exploitation film, so it's ridiculous, it's over the top, and it has just insane moments. It centers on this research facility that is actually trying to figure out how to cure Alzheimer's, and they're using sharks and experimenting on them, and then in the process sharks get really smart, and then the sharks figure out a way to get revenge and break out of this facility, and they start killing off the people in the facility one by one. This one has such amazing atmosphere. It's super intense and suspenseful, and I just love watching these characters try to get out of this facility alive. And as the sharks are breaking in, the shark stuff is so cool. I think the shark stuff is really well done without being overly cheesy with how they look, and I just think it has an amazing ending. I love the cast. Every time the cast has to swim to the surface and have to hold their breath for a really long time, I also need to hold my breath to see if I can do it, and I can. I can survive this situation, but I also don't have sharks swimming after me, so, you know, that could change things. But do you also do this? Are you also a weirdo? Then I rewatched The Conjuring 2, which I think is my favorite of the Conjuring series. This one is set in England, and it follows this family who is experiencing really intense paranormal activity. And this is based on the Enfield poltergeist, which was a real event that happened. And Ed and Lorraine Warren are called in to investigate to determine if it's real and if the church should intervene and do some sort of like exorcism. I think this one has really sweet moments where, especially with Ed, when he sings Elvis to the kids who love Elvis, they're going through a really hard time, and that moment is just so sweet and pure and just a brief moment of happiness for these kids. And I also love that we get more of the relationship between Ed and Lorraine. Patrick Wilson and Vera Farmiga are just so good in this movie, and I just really like this one a lot. Then I revisited The Descent, which is about a group of women who go cave diving, and they find themselves trapped underground with these creatures that essentially are like humanoids. They can't see, but they can hear, kind of like bats. And it's super intense, it's super claustrophobic, it has some really violent moments, and I just have to say, the lead females in this movie are so badass. Like Sarah and Juno killing all of these creatures, they're just so cool to watch. But I know that there's just so many intense moments in this where I can't breathe because of the claustrophobia of them crawling through these tight spaces. And just the thought of being trapped underground with a bunch of humanoid creatures is terrifying. Then I checked out Hoax, which is from Olympia Avalanche. I don't know if I'm saying that correctly, but I think it's a drag team duo, and this is centered on a group of friends who head out to the woods to kind of capture an alien activity. And this one's really weird and trippy. I don't know if I really liked it, but I do like and appreciate that this group of people made this movie on such a low budget. They were clearly inspired by the Blair Witch Project. You can see that influence throughout the movie, and I don't know, I just think it's cool to support indie filmmakers and creators and creatives, and this one's free on YouTube. And finally, I ended off the month watching Maxxxine, which is the final film in Ty West's trilogy. This stars Mia Goth once again as Maxxxine as she attempts to make it big in Hollywood. She gets cast in a horror movie and she's about to have her big break, but there's a killer on the loose killing off her acquaintances and threatening to reveal her sinister past. This one is so much different than the other two installments in the franchise. It is definitely 80s, but not the campy kind of 80s we've been used to lately. It's much darker and sleazier. You can see the De Palma influence in this. I love the whole vibe and aesthetic, the costume design. I love Maxxine's look in this, and I just love Mia Goth. She is once again mesmerizing as Maxxine. We get to see her do an audition for this horror movie where she gives a really great monologue, and she's such a badass. I don't think she really had a lot to do in this one compared to Pearl. Like, Pearl is her best performance in this trilogy, but that doesn't mean she did badly in this. There just wasn't a lot for her to do. I think there were a lot of fun moments and kills in this. There's one in particular involving the stomping of male body parts, which was like cartoonish and ridiculous and just made you squirm, or it made me squirm. And there's another moment where Maxxine takes a fistful of keys and beats someone with it, and it's timed with the music. I think the song is St. Elmo's Fire, and it's so funny. Kevin Bacon is also amazing in this as this sleazy PI that's on her case. I loved watching him. He was like eating up every scene, and watching them kind of riff off of each other throughout the movie was really fun. And then the story reveal I was kind of expecting, and it's a little ridiculous, but it was fun. It was still fun, and I think it was another great entry in this series. I liked the way it ended. I think it's a great way to end this series. I don't know if there's going to be more, but I think that this is a pretty awesome trilogy from A24, and I highly recommend you go see it. It's in theaters July 5th. And there you have it. That's everything I've watched lately. Let me know what movies you've checked out and if you're excited for Maxxxine, if you plan to see it. And thanks so much for watching, guys. I'll catch you next time. Bye.